Today's show is sponsored by Republic Boot Company of Houston, Texas. I just got my new boots, custom made by Republic Boots, and they're wonderful. They look amazing, and more importantly, they fit perfectly, and they feel great. If you haven't already, you can take a look at them on my Facebook or Instagram, or you'll likely see me wearing them at a show in the coming months. You can order your own pair of boots and find more information at republicbootcompany.com. I've got a lot of exciting shows coming up in the month of July that I'd love to see you at. On July 6th, I'll be in Stamford, Texas at the Texas Cowboy Reunion. On July 13th, I'll be in Red River, New Mexico at Michael Martin Murphy's American West Fest. On July 20th, I'll be in Lubbock, Texas at the Cactus Theater, playing a show with my friend Andy Wilkinson. And on July 27th, I'll be in Newport, Rhode Island at the Newport Folk Festival, playing a show with my friend Ramblin' Jack Elliott. You can find more information on all of these shows at my website, andyhedges.com. I'd like to start today's show with an old-time poem by the great Bruce Kiskadden. This one's entitled, When You're Throwed. If a feller's been astraddle since he's big enough to ride and has had to throw a saddle onto every sort of hide, though it's nothing they take pride in, most fellers I've knowed, if they ever done much ridin', has at various times got throwed. It perhaps is when you're startin' on a roundup some fine day, that you feel a bit uncertain about some little wall-eyed bay, for he swells to beat the nation while you're cinching up the slack, and he keeps a elevation in your saddle at the back. He starts rarin' and a-jumpin', and he strikes when you get near, but you cuss him and you thump him till you get him by the ear. Then your right hand grabs the saddle, and you catch a stirrup too, and he aimed to light a straddle like a woolly buckaroo, but he drops his head and switches, and he gives a backwards jump. Out of reach your stirrup twitches, and your right spur grabs his rump. And stay with him, shouts some feller, but you know it's hope forlorn, and you feel a streak of yeller as you choke the saddle horn. Then you feel one rein a-droppin', and you know he's got his head, and your shirt tail's out and floppin', and the saddle pulls like lead. Then it ain't no use a-tryin', for your spurs begin to slip. Now you're upside down a-flyin', and the horn tears from your grip. Then you feel a vague sensation as upon the ground you roll, like a violent separation twixt your body and your soul. And you land again a hummock where you lay and gasp for breath, and there's something grips your stomach like the awful clutch of death. And the landscape round you totters when at last you try to stand, and you're shaky on your trotters and your mouth is full of sand. They all swear you beat a circus or a hoochie-coochie dance, mopping up the canyon surface with the bosom of your pants. There's fellers give prescriptions how them broncos should be rode, but there's few that gives descriptions of the times when they got throwed. Howdy folks, this is Andy Hedges, and you're listening to Cowboy Crossroads. On each episode, I interview a different guest and ask them to share stories and discuss music, poetry, and culture from the working cowboy west and beyond. My guest today is Ned LeDoux. Ned is a singer and a songwriter from Kacee, Wyoming. He's the son of rodeo cowboy singer Chris LeDoux, and he's carrying on the LeDoux family tradition of making music about the West. I sat down with Ned at the National Cowboy Poetry Gathering in Elko, Nevada, where we were both performing, and recorded this interview. Here's Ned LeDoux.
So I was born and raised in Wyoming on a ranch just outside of Kacee. And Kacee's population hasn't really changed much, and I don't think it's ever hit the 300 mark, 300 people total. It's still like right around 265, 270. And it was just a great place to grow up, kind of in the shadow of the Bighorn Mountains. And it's kind of in the northeast corner of Wyoming. And everybody in that community, I guess, were ranchers, or did a little farming, stuff like that. And even for the ones that lived in Kacee, they might drive a truck or work in the bentonite pits or something like that. They had the savvy to be able to do ranch work as well. If somebody needed some help, branding or whatever, irrigating, day work stuff. But yeah, I'm just thankful to have grown up that way. I lived on the ranch for 35 years or something like that, worked it. Yeah, I'm second oldest of 5 kids, and my mom and dad are my heroes. They taught me a lot of great things growing up. I guess most importantly, just have a good work ethic and have dreams, have something to shoot for when you get up out of bed, and so yeah, I'm just very thankful to have grown up that way. Grew up, on the ranch. We had sheep when I was a kid, and then moved on to some cattle. And playing music came in at a really young age. I was probably 5 or 6. I got a set of drums, and it was a family friend of ours brought them out, and I still don't know why it was the drums, but I got to find out who that was that brought them out and just say thanks, because that pretty much changed my life from that point on, even though I was only 5 years old. But I don't really remember anything before that, because I was bitten by the beat right off the bat, and I just couldn't get enough of them. But I continued to work on the ranch and all that stuff. But I started taking drum lessons and got in my first band when I was about 14 or 15, and played all over the state of Wyoming. Yeah, for like junior high all the way through high school, I was in the same group. And so, yeah, I'd go out and play on the weekends and then come home, work on the ranch during the week. And yeah, it was a pretty good way to get things going. Yeah, music was always played around the house. My older brother, who's 5 years older than me, he would go into Casper, Wyoming, and watch all those rock bands come to town. Groups like Cinderella and Bon Jovi, Motley Crue, Van Halen, and Def Leppard, bunch of them. And he would go to the store after the show or maybe before the show and go buy the cassette and bring it home. And so I would listen, and still to this day, I love heavy metal and rock and roll. But I also grew up listening to a lot of the cowboy poetry stuff, and of course my dad. And my dad was a big fan of Charlie Daniels, and so I was introduced to his music at a really young age, and just yeah, even still, I love hearing that old stuff. But yeah, music has always kind of been in the house, and everybody in my family can play something. My older brother can play guitar, and my little brother played fiddle for a little while, and my sister and my other brother played piano for a little bit. And I just banged on the drums for 30 years or something like that. And but I guess I was the only one that wanted to pursue it, just chase it down. And so, yeah. I was 14 or 15. It must have been maybe 1990, 91 when I joined them. And it was just a little tiny band based out of Kacee. Cowtown was the name of the group. And we didn't really play that many gigs or anything. And that was the band that introduced me to the term gig. Because when I first joined them, or they asked me to join, I said, "So when's our next concert?" And they looked at me and laughed and kind of rolled their eyes. I said, "Ned, we don't play concerts." I said, "Well, what's the difference?" He goes, "Well, we play gigs. A concert's more like 90 minutes to 2 hours. And we play gigs where we start at 9 and play until they start kicking people out." And in my opinion, I thought that was better. Like, man, we get to play all night long. This will be great. Of course, most of the folks that were in the band were 20 to 25 years older than me. They've kind of been down the road. And so, but yeah, it was just a great way to start off. And we didn't play like that many gigs, like I said, because everybody had more important things going on, whether it was ranching or driving truck, and I was still in school and involved in sports and things like that. So, but it was a great place to start.
Chris LeDoux was a world champion bareback rider and a Grammy-nominated musician whose music is loved by ranching and rodeo folks all over the West. I asked Ned what it was like to be the son of Chris LeDoux.
I guess the thing that I tell most people, is, if you're a Chris LeDoux fan, in the rodeo, you knew him as a world champion bareback rider in 1976. And country music, you knew him as a great singer-songwriter. And in my opinion, he put on the best show ever. But if you're me or any of my siblings, we just knew him as dad. But my mom and dad are my heroes, and they have been forever, and they will be beyond forever. And just everything I learned from them growing up, like I said, the value of hard work, they instilled that in me at a really young age. And, manners, be nice to people, because, that's the only way to be. So, but yeah, as far as, I guess, seeing what other people saw, as far as, that's Chris LeDoux, I joined his band in 98, played drums for him for a number of years. And I guess it was probably just the first couple of shows. I remember starting the show, I think Take Me to the Rodeo was a song that we usually started with. And the drums kind of started out, this big kind of Bo Diddley beat. And then all of a sudden it comes into that first bar, and Dad comes flying over the drums and just bang, right there in the middle. And the crowd just explodes. And it's like, okay, that's the guy everybody's talking about, But still, I just call him Dad.
Chris LeDoux's early albums in the 1970s included not only his own songs, but also traditional cowboy songs and songs written by authentic cowboy and Western songwriters like my friends Gary McMahon and Bob Campbell. I asked Ned if he knew where his dad was picking up those early songs.
I'd imagine it's just along the rodeo trail somewhere. And he was just a big fan of all the cowboy stuff, kind of a historian in a way. He read all kinds of books about it, and he was that. He was cowboy through and through. But I know when he was first starting to record these albums, my grandpa LeDoux was his producer or manager. They'd moved down to Tennessee around Mount Juliet. And my dad didn't move down there, but once Dad started recording stuff, my grandpa would get him into the studio, and they'd cut, 10 songs or whatever. And most of the stuff was Dad's own, original songs. But then Grandpa was thinking, well, maybe if we can do 2 albums a year, things will just go a little bit quicker. And I think that's when Dad started, going back to the old classics, just those old cowboy classics and recording them. It's like, okay, here's one album that's got original stuff, and then we'll do another one if you want to, Grandpa, and we'll do more of the cover stuff. And so yeah, he did that for a number of years, doing 2 albums in 1 year. And I think it about drained him though, because later on in his career, Mac McAnally, his producer, came along, and he went up to Mac. I think they're in Muscle Shoals, and he went up to Mac and said, "Now I'm just going to let you know, I've never really enjoyed this recording process," because I think Grandpa kind of burned him out. It was like, man, it's over and over 2 albums a year, and the songwriting and everything. And a couple days later in the studio, it was kind of out in the country, and there's this pond in the back and this old porch swing on the back, and Mac was saying, well, where's Chris? Where'd he go? And Mac peeked his head out the back door, and Dad was on that swing with a big old grin on his face. And he said, Mac, this recording thing just keeps getting easier and easier. Because, Mac McAnally, he's a 10-time CMA Musician of the Year, but he's just the most humble, modest guy you'd ever be around, And so, that's kind of the stories of the recording process, I guess. I played drums in 2 different bands for about 8 years before I joined Dad's band. And the way I got in to Dad's group was K.W. Turnbow, the drummer, got in a car wreck. And this would have been, I think, late August of 98. And he'd messed his shoulder up really bad, and doctors thought he might be out for close to a year, with the surgery and the physical therapy he'd have to go through. But they only had 4 or 5 days to find somebody else who could fit the part and knew the material, and that's when Dad approached me and said, well, you've been playing quite a while, you're probably getting pretty good, want to come out and give it a shot? And first of all, I couldn't believe he asked me, and I said, yeah, I'm your man. And so I think it was the first part of September of 98, I played my first show up in Pocatello, Idaho. And it was quite the difference, going from playing little street dances and weddings and, benefit shows to playing in front of 15,000 people. And I remember being backstage about 10 minutes before showtime, and I'm just kind of standing there looking around. And Bobby Jensen, the keyboard player, come up behind me, and he kind of laid his chin on my shoulder. He goes, "Are you nervous?" I said, "A little bit." He goes, "Yeah, there's a lot of people out there." So thanks, Bobby. Yeah. But so the first, 4 or 5 shows, it took me a while just to calm down, because the show is supposed to last 90 minutes. And the way I was playing everything so quick, it ended up being maybe an hour long, just exaggerating, but that's kind of what happened. But even though I'd been playing drums for a number of years before I joined Dad, those guys really kind of formed me into being the best drummer I could be. Each one of them in the band, they would take me aside and tell me what I needed to work on. Like your timing, it's a little off. You tend to drag a little bit, or you speed up. Just work on that timing. That's the most important thing for a drummer. And you don't have to hit them quite so hard. And so I learned a lot from my dad in the Western Underground. And also just being with a group of guys that, had been there and done that, just lead by example, so I'm very thankful to have had that experience. Shortly after Dad passed away, the Western Underground decided to kind of keep things going, just as a kind of a tribute to Dad. And we did bring in a lead singer, so we weren't like splitting all the songs up, with one guy singing one, another guy singing another one. And so we brought in a guy named Dustin Evans, and he's out of South Dakota. And so he did all the singing, and we kept all the other pieces where they were, as far as guitar, keyboards, drums, all that stuff. And then in the meantime, Dustin Evans also had his own deal going on. And so I was playing drums in 2 different bands for the next 12 years. But as far as singing and all that stuff, if you'd have asked me 5 years ago if I had any interest in singing and being in front of everybody, I said, no, you're crazy. I'm a drummer. This is what I want to do. But my first show with Dustin Evans and the Good Times Band, I think it was in Lincoln, Nebraska. And we got done with the gig, and we went back to the hotel room, and we're just kind of hanging out. And Dustin brought out his acoustic, and he was playing some of these old songs, and he gave me the guitar. I said, "Ned, why don't you play one of your dad's songs?" And I looked at Dustin, and I said, "Man, I don't know any songs." And so when I got home a couple days later, that's when I just picked up my guitar, because I've been playing a little while, maybe 5 years or something like that, but I never knew any songs. And so I picked out one of my favorite songs that Dad wrote, a song called Rodeo Man, and just to see if I could learn one. So if one day Dustin hands me that guitar again, I'd be able to play something for him. And so one song led to two, and then to a couple dozen, and so I'd get out and started playing, some solo gigs, a few years later, and when people started showing up, I thought maybe I ought to take this a little more serious and try to get better at it. So yeah, going back maybe 3 or 4 years ago is when I pretty much put the drums away and started focusing more on this. That's what I've always kind of been about, is just family tradition stuff, We got a lot of traditions in my family about all kinds of different things. And when it comes to the music, this apple doesn't fall too far from the tree, and then also with the songs that I write, I'm not trying to write songs like my dad would have written, when it comes to writing songs, I need to just write about what I know, and my own experiences, and that might go hand in hand with dad's stuff. And I actually had a really cool dream a couple years ago. Well, maybe about a year ago. My first album came out. It's called Sagebrush. And I had this dream that me and Dad were sitting at the breakfast table, and he was listening to my album. He had some headphones on, this little stereo, and he shut it off and he put the headphones down. He just got done listening to Forever a Cowboy. And he goes, "Man, that's a good song." I said, "Well, thanks, Dad. I wrote that." "Man, I wish I had recorded that one." And man, I woke up in just the best mood for the next week or two, I was like, man, maybe that's Dad's way of kind of channeling his way through me to let me know that I did a pretty good job. Well, with this new album, I'll be going to Nashville in a couple days to start my second project. And most of the songs for this one, I wrote or started them while I was on the road. 2018 was just an amazing year. We were playing all over the place. And the time that I had at home, I didn't want to waste that time writing songs. I just wanted to be with my family, And so I'd write most of the stuff on the road, and it'd be written down on a gas receipt or a boarding pass, or I might type a note in my phone. Then once I had an extended time at the house, I would kind of dump everything on the table and kind of pick through these ideas that I'd started and just kind of choose the best one. But sometimes, a song will start with somebody says something, and I remember it, I write it down, and sometimes it just starts with a melody. I don't really have a scientific method behind it or anything, and I still kind of consider myself a pretty green when it comes to writing songs. I can kind of feel myself starting to mature in it a little bit, but yeah, you just never know when it's going to come around. And my producer and kind of mentor in songwriting, Mac McAnally, he kind of described it as water. He said, when you first get into it, man, it's going to be flowing great. You're going to have all these great ideas, but eventually the well's going to dry up and you need to drill somewhere else and find new inspiration. And I've drilled a few wells in the last 2 or 3 years, but yeah, once I've had a song that kind of wrote itself, a couple of them. There's a song called The Hawk. It's a true story. And then Forever a Cowboy. It just kind of fell out, And so, yeah, it's something I've never tried, up until like 3 years ago, and I enjoy it. Sagebrush is a perfect reflection of who I am and where I came from and all my friends, my family, and the landscape. And it was, it's like, I love this album, and it's one of those albums I wanted to record an album that I would be happy listening to, not every day, but, every couple of months, and just not listen back on it and have any regrets, thinking, I could have done better on this one line or something. So yeah, moving on to the next one. it was a little tougher, I guess, trying to come up with something, but I think we got it. I'm pretty excited for this new stuff.
In talking about the popularity of cowboy and western music and how it finds its place in mainstream culture, our friend Don Edwards said this back in the 1990s. It's mighty encouraging to see the interest in the cowboy and west phenomenon continue to grow. I just hope it doesn't become too big, because that's when the corporate weasels turn it into homogenized fodder for the sterile digestive tracts of the mindless mainstream.
Yeah, I think I'll just stick to that western part of it, and I don't know if it'll ever be mainstream, and that's totally fine with me. I'm not writing songs to be played on the radio. I'd rather some old rancher in a truck listening to it than radio. That means a little more to me if it's somebody that understands what I'm singing about. Because I'm not after number one songs or anything like that. But yeah, I'm just kind of write about my background. I grew up on a ranch, building fence and working cows and sheep and all that stuff, and just writing about what I know and where I came from. That makes it easier, because I'm a terrible pretender. I can't write a song that I have no relation with, and it would show if I tried to. So I'll just stick to the cowboy code, I guess. And this is it's a song that my father-in-law gave me the idea, and he'd written this poem, and it was titled "The Next in Line." And so I knew exactly where he was going with it before I even read the poem. But it's a song about about these old ranches. It's been around for 100 years or more, and even if it's only been around 40 years, I mean, it's a long time too. But you hope that the next generation has an interest in it and falls in love with ranching. So it's called "The Next in Line." It's hard to make a living on 100 head of cows. Barely breaking even, we survive somehow. Wife's waiting tables in a greasy cafe, and I'm building fence for another man's place. So many things you can't control, the market, bank, and the weather. But we hung tough despite them all, and we held it together. Next in line, it's up to you where you go and what you want to do. But this ranch is home for the next in line. I'm just a simple man, all I'm trying to say, please don't sell out, move away. I hope the dream will find the next in line. Raised him on this ranch from the beginning, taught him hard work, faith, and believing. Hope they'd settle down, find a place close by. Jobs are in the city, and this town's gone dry. And good ranch hands, oh, they're scarce these days. Harder to keep when you find them. Work days long, no more than it pays, and when they go you wonder who's behind them. The next in line, it's up to you where you go and what you want to do. but you know this ranch is home for the next in line. I'm just a simple man, all I'm trying to say, please don't sell out and move away. I hope the dream will find the next in line. And I wanna pass it on, what was handed down to me. It's more than dirt and paper, it's deeper than the eye can see. Well, it's a way of life, and it fits just right on me. Next in line, it's up to you where you go and what you want to do. But you know this ranch is home for the next in line. I'm just a simple man, all I'm trying to say, please don't sell out and move away. I hope the dream will find the next in line. Lord, I hope the dream will find the next in line.
That's good, man. Thanks for taking the time to tell me those stories and
Well, yeah.
be on the show.
Thanks for having me.
All right, folks, that's it for today's episode. I'd like to thank Ned LeDoux for taking the time to visit with me. You can find out more about Ned at nedledoux.com. I'd like to thank Republic Boot Company for sponsoring today's episode. You can find out more about Republic Boots at republicbootcompany.com. You can find out more about me and this show at andyhedges.com. If you're enjoying this show and would like to help me keep it going, you can make a donation on my website, or you could leave me a review and a rating on the iTunes store, or you could simply take the time to tell a friend to listen to the show. If you'd like to contact me with a comment or a question or a story, I'd love to hear from you. Send an email to andy@andyhedges.com. Thank you for listening to Cowboy Crossroads.